Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
As we know, Craig and Rick, this week he was denied his request for Secret Service protection, which he submitted back in May. And it took him 2 months, more than 2 months, almost 3 months to get back to him. And they denied his request, which to me is just incredible that anybody in the Kennedy family who's running for president would be denied Secret Service protection. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want to compare Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump would see a press, like a group of press people, and sometimes walk over to them and just start talking to them. He would do that at time to time, so he's in a different boat than Biden, him along with all the establishment Democrats, they protect themselves. And I've been at plenty of DNC conventions before, and it's like they have blinders on. I try to get Pete Buttigieg coming out of a room in New Hampshire at one point, and he just kept himself smiling and moving straight forward until he got out of that room. I was trying to question him. Pardon Assange? Will you pardon Assange? I've been in a room where Kamala Harris just completely ignores people and keeps her head straight. That's why they really messed up when they let me and Fiorelli get into that press conference, and they were like, "Oh my Lord!" And you can just see the look on Kamala's face, on Andrew Yang's face, on Pete Buttigieg's face when they're like, "Who the hell is this person asking me questions, and what are they going to ask me?" So I think there is a difference between Trump and Joe Biden. However, no, a lot of people won't do what RFK is doing, is just go sit down and talk to people, and take the tough questions. So, I'm very interested, Laura. You said, that he's not going to back down from Max. I think Max was on the Hill today saying that, the communications director does not want that to happen. Therefore, it's not going to happen. So we'll see. You know what I'm saying? But
that's news to me.
I believe RFK is genuine. I don't like all his opinions and all his positions, but I do believe he's genuine. So, that is something that a lot of people need right now and are looking for in their politicians.
Well, like I said earlier, Kennedy campaign staffers really don't get a say in what Bobby does or doesn't do. He's going to do what he's going to do. And if he decides he wants to debate Max Blumenthal, and he said so publicly yesterday on the Jimmy Dore show, he's going to show up.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Nobody
at the campaign is going to be able to stop him if that's what he wants to do.
I think it's going to be a conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As much as a debate. I think they're going to be completely, on the opposite sides. And this is something that I think you said too, as recently as well, is like, listen, you don't like his opinion. You don't like his opinion. You're not going to change it. You know what I'm saying? You can say why you don't like it, but that's his decision. It sucks. And we have to deal with that sometimes. And listen, if those people out there say they're not going to vote for him or support him because of that reason, I don't, belittle them for that. That's their decision and stuff like that. But for some of us who are doing a cost benefit analysis and we want to support that campaign or the candidate, like I said, for me, it's all about just getting that campaign going. As long as we can, up until the convention, up until they trash him, talking about issues after issue after issue, educating people, opening their eyes to what's going on, stuff that would not be talked about if he wasn't there. That's what I'm all about. So I'm hoping to push it to the limit. But if you feel that way, so be it. But let's not trash each other over here. You know what I'm saying? That's what we don't want. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I used to say, if Trump, after Bernie Sanders bowed out, so if Trump wants to know how to attack Hillary Clinton, he should go back and look at the way the burners were going after Hillary Clinton. Well, I think there's a lot of people who, they want to know how to trash RFK, they can watch and see the way some of these, the progressive left are trashing RFK, and they're almost doing the work of the Biden campaign somewhat.
Bingo. Thank you. That's what I've been saying. You're saving the Biden campaign a lot of work, guys.
Biden's the enemy right now, not RFK. Biden is the enemy.
Correct. What do you think, Rick? You want to chime in, buddy?
Well, I just don't think, honestly, I'm kind of with Craig. I don't think that RFK really has a chance, short of Biden keeling over and dying. Unless, maybe they'll bring another candidate in, but I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. So yeah, if there's opportunity to discuss different issues, then there's something productive that can come out of that, that's fine. But I don't have much faith in the DNC machine, and I think he's with the wrong party. And the whole thing is a moot point, other than discussions about issues, which is fine. But I don't think he can win because they won't let him.
You know what we often say on this show, Craig, is that he should be running in the Republican Party. What do you think of that?
Either way, it's, two sides of the same, bird, whatnot. And yeah, of course, if you think that might give him a better chance to win, yeah. But like I said, I define winning as this political discourse right now. I think that at the end of the day, and I don't want to say anything. Are you guys, is YouTube stream still up, or is it?
No, they cut us.
They cut us?
Yeah. And
I wondered.
I don't know.
Hell?
I got like a warning yesterday too. So
I know.
They are
our channel just got another strike. Are we on strike 2?
No, they took content down, so I don't know where we're gonna end up. I haven't looked to see what they're saying.
I've been demonetized on YouTube for close to 3 years right now, and every single time I reapply, it's coming back harmful content, misinformation, not abiding by the guidelines. You never know exactly why. I'm sorry, guys, if that was me talking about elections that could have done it. But YouTube did say they were changing their guidelines to allow election conversation to take place. So, I do apologize.
But only 2020. We can talk about 2020 now. But now they're banning people for talking about the upcoming election, and specifically RFK Jr. They have they took down my channel. They put 3 strikes on me every time I had to upload a video about RFK for medical misinformation, whether we talked about vaccines or not. And I guess now that we're off YouTube, I can say that. So I just did. So there.
I think your feed's still up on your YouTube channel. So.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, so you should
very
be careful.
Strange. I don't know what's going on.
Different account though, right? So
something very strange is going on. Yeah. Another thing that Kennedy supporters say, and we're saying this loudly to the DNC, and I hope they clean the wax out of their ears and listen. Mm-hmm. If you give us Joe Biden instead of RFK, we'll give you Donald Trump. We will. We'll go out and vote for Trump. Well, if you deny Kennedy the nomination.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
One of the things that Lori would, what people have said to me is that, well, it's a sheep herding process again. He's going to sheep herd people in like Bernie Sanders did just to vote for the Democrats. It's not going to happen with RFK. 90%, and I'm saying this with confidence, 90%, in my opinion, of RFK supporters' second choice is Donald Trump. They're not going to vote for Joe Biden. They're not going to vote for any Democrat. It's just not going to happen. So the sheep herding operation, which everybody's scared about, is just a moot point. It doesn't make a difference. They're not going to vote for the Democrat if they cheat or if RFK drops out. It's not going to happen. They're going to go vote for Trump.
I think you're right. No. I think you're right.
And once again,
go ahead.
Elections.
Who knows, right? Yeah. Who can tell? Yeah. Who can tell? And, that's why I think that despite all the naysayers who were frankly just disgruntled Democrats, a lot of the Bernie supporters that I know who got burned, not once, but twice, because a lot of them went back for more in 2020. They thought it was going to be different the next time around, that Bernie wouldn't sell them out twice. And then he did. And so they swore off of voting. They swore off of ever voting again for anybody, certainly not a Democrat. And they're so disgruntled and so angry that it's interfering with their ability to reason. And they're taking themselves out of the political process. I mean, you want change, but you say you're not going to vote. So how are you going to change things? Are you going to storm a government building and bring your guns and do a January 6th? Or how exactly do you change things if you don't vote?
Well, I'm not going to belittle people if they don't believe in the process and they don't believe it's fair and they're not going to do it. I don't know what they're going to do. And like I said, I'm not going to belittle them, but don't belittle me.
I'm
That's
not
where we're
belittling them.
at.
I'm just asking an
Yeah.
earnest question. I mean, if
Me
you don't vote,
personally, though,
how do you
I'm
change
just saying I'm
things?
not going to. I'm not going to look down upon anybody who says they're not going to vote because they believe the system's unfair. I shouldn't use the word belittle. I'm not going to look down and I'm not going to hold it against them. But, don't hold it against me. And I've said this before, even as election integrity activist question system, I believe strongly in voting, and I'm not going to let them take that process away from me. You know what I'm saying? They got to pry my vote out of my cold, dead hands as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I'm at on the situation. So, I'm going to make them, I'm going to, leave as much evidence, as much, crumbs from the trail behind, as we can. And like once again, I'm watching my tongue on how do I speak over here because of the whole YouTube situation. But, I believe in it. And I believe that voting, whether or not in a rigged system, is important, because so many things come out of it. This is when people coalesce around the issues every 4 years. So I'm going to embrace that, and I'm going to run with that.
Hey, Rick, could you take over for a couple of minutes? I've got something I have to
Sure. Yeah.
take care of kind of urgently. I'll be right back.
You go ahead. Which kind of makes me wonder, since you've mentioned Trump, I see the two candidates as populist candidates, both of them, RFK and Donald Trump. I see a lot of similarities, overlap. What do you think the differences are?
Well, for one, I believe climate is a difference between, are we talking from RFK and the Republican Party, the two differences? Or
yeah.
Over?
Well, specifically, see, I'm just interested in because there is so much overlap. And Lori just said, if you give us Biden, we'll give you Trump. I get that because I see the crossover appeal, even the same way there was crossover appeal with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. But I'm also seeing that the Trump campaign this time around, it's different. The campaign is different. The base of support is different. I see a lot more influence from, say, even the Q movement, the QAnon crowd, which I think is growing. And I think that, that sort of element is playing a much larger role in the Trump campaign this time around than it did the first time he was elected. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that movement in particular, the one you're talking about in Q, is just because there's a lot more desperation from people to have some form of accountability. At the end of the day, a lot of the Q drops and the Q mentality goes to these people having to pay the price for what they did to humanity. So I think people are just desperate for some form of accountability out there, especially when there's none. I mean, you just have to look at Hunter Biden, anybody who in office, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who just walked. So I think that's why the Q mentality still has some roots and still how it's growing. And there's a lot of people I know who say you have to drop that already and stop, believing in this stuff. It's just kind of and keeping you holding on. But the differences and areas of difference with the Republican Party, and you talk about the populist right, is definitely number one on the environment. I think at the end of the day, RFK, not the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party believes in the ESG movement. They believe in consolidation of the big companies swallowing up the small companies. They have this kind of, pipe dream that we should it should be put on the individual and not the corporations when it comes to the climate. I don't think that a lot of the conservative movement and the populist movement really cares about how much they drill, how much they frack. RFK is not that person. He's different when it comes to climate change. He believes in he no longer believes in a top-down approach, is what he said. He believes in a bottom approach, grassroots movement. But at the end of the day, that particular, when it comes to RFK, he's much more, I think, at least observant and friendly, realistically, to Mother Nature than, what the Democrats claim to be, So, and he has a history of fighting for that. So I think there's a big difference. I believe that RFK has stated that he wants to take on China economically. Whereas I believe that a lot of the populist right and the conservative movement, they don't, they'll easily be moved in and manufactured for a war with China. I when I spoke at Rage Against the War Machine in Washington, D.C., I said to the crowd, we were talking about, there's a bill being floated around by some of the populist right, some of the congressional members in the House to end the war in Ukraine. And that was by Matt Gaetz. And I said, don't think for 1 second, Matt Gaetz, that we're going to be okay with you ending a war in Kiev just so you can bring a war in Taiwan, with Beijing. So I believe that the a lot of the populist right and a lot of the conservative movement, the Donald Trump people, they also believe that China was the reason for the COVID release, the origins. And now a lot of them are starting to come to light. I'm saying, oh my God, looks like America was involved. And, this really is a homegrown thing. But China was their partner, their willing partner. So I think there's a big difference there. So those two areas in particular are the two areas for me that I say this is something I don't dig when it comes to the populist movement. War with China, the pro-Israel stance. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see a little bit more sympathy, a lot more sympathy, in fact, for the Palestinians and what's happened over there. And Mother Nature. At the end of the day, I still believe the populist right and the conservative movement is drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing I wonder about with RFK is I see his approach as being sort of like a conservationist rather than a straight up environmentalist. But I kind of wonder how that will translate into actual policy in the end. Will he actually take us away from this woke climate change, tax the crap out of everybody, degrowth sort of approach to dealing with the environment, or will he take something more moderate and more in the vein of a traditional conservationist, if you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. And I think that he has learned, I think a lot has changed over the last several years. And I think he saw what happened with the COVID protocols and that whole situation, the way it was used for manipulation, the way it was used for control. And I think he saw a lot of the same type of mentality with the ESG movement, you know what I'm saying? And I think he's changed his stance on that. So I do think he'll be more of a conservationist than, one of this, let's go balls to the wall, let's stop this, let's put it on the individual. I think he has the ability, and he can actually point out the areas of concern where a lot of people can grasp. And in other words, he's not going to be a Green New Deal AOC type of person. I think, his plan will be more practical. And I think that's better for us and everybody. Because, I mean, the Democratic, a lot of this establishment Democratic mentality, they look at energy as just burning oil with trucks and cars and everything like that. I look at energy as keeping grandma warm, and being able to cook and whatnot. So I think he'll have a practical mindset when it comes to that. In fact, that's one of the areas I think that he will be able to champion, because he's had a history of going after polluters and real polluters,
This is like way off in another field, but I'd like to get your take on this, and maybe it'll come back around this, your answer to RFK and the election. But can you help me make any sense out of all this UFO talk and the aliens and the congressional thing? What the heck is going on?
I have a video I can share with you that's a really quick one, and it will really shed some light on the situation. If you want to give me,
please, if you can help me make some sense out of this.
I have something that will make perfect sense for you. Give me 2 seconds. I have it right here. And I think this video said it best. So let me just, if you could give me sharing power again.
Sure. Yeah.
Here we are. This is it. If you can share that for me.
Yeah.
And here we are.
So the United States government is admitting that we do have a moon base and that there is a bear problem on said moon base.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, follow-up question. Are you fucking with us?
That's a really good question.
No, we are not, and I would like to remind everyone to keep the language civilized. This is the White House.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, Bob Daniels, Newsweek.
Mr. Daniels.
How long have we had the moon base? And are these bears Earth bears, or are they from the moon?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to disclose how long we have had this moon base at this time. We do believe these to be Earth bears. We have no reason to believe these to be lunar bears or even Saturn bears.
Todd Albright, PBS. There's Saturn bears?
I am also not at liberty to go into the various types of woodland life forms on Saturn or any of the other 12 planets.
9 planets.
Right. I've said much already. What I can show you is the images that have been beamed down to us from the Odyssey satellite system just a couple hours ago. This is the view out of the front door of the United States secret moon base. This was taken yesterday before we discovered the bear problem. And this one was taken just a couple hours ago. So, as you can see, bears everywhere.
Question, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. James.
Yeah, those bears appear to have guns and motorcycles.
We believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel, perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but we wouldn't happen to be invading Iran today, would we?
You got me.
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
No, I went too far. I almost had it. I should have stopped after the slides. I knew I should have stopped
I
there.
didn't think anything about it until the cartel thing, and I was like, what?
Okay, all right. Let's forget this whole thing. Who wants a drink? First round's on me. Come on.
Now
There
it
you
makes
have it.
perfect sense.
That's how I feel about the Bears.
Yeah.
That's just
Oh,
about it. About the UFOs and everything. I really do just feel it's a distraction. I really do. And they're going to present more distractions as much as they can when they can, so they can. We were invading Iran today, weren't we? It's just I thought that was genius, and that's why. That's the way I look at the whole UFO situation. I do believe there is probably UFOs. It maybe I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's
I don't know either.
I just think it's a distraction, Rick.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said, was it last night? I said, if they really have UFOs, then just show me. And if you got an alien, just, let's bring them out. Otherwise, how about we just shut up?
There's a reason they've been staying away. If intelligent life is out there in the universe, I think there's a reason they haven't made contact with us. I think we scare them.
Well,
Maybe.
I can see why. Yeah.
Maybe.
Those humans, man, they scare me. Humans scare me sometimes as much.
Well,
as
that was way off in left field, but I had to ask because I just wanted another sane person to shed some light on this.
I think it's a distraction.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think so many of these culture war issues are a distraction. The UFO thing is a distraction. And honestly, even the Israel-Palestine thing that's got everybody's panties in a knot, I think that's a distraction too, to keep us angry and divided and fighting with one another. Because when it comes right down to it, Americans want to fix their country. We want to fix things at home. That's one of the winning messages that Donald Trump had, was America first. Before we worry about fixing Israel or fixing Russia or fixing China or fixing North Korea, we seem to be the self-appointed fixers of all that's wrong in the world, while not cleaning our own house.
Well, I think that's the way we do fix it. We stop intervening. We pull out. I don't think that Israel-Palestine is a distraction. I think it's a serious problem. But even Dr. Shiva, he gave a good explanation about why. And Dr. Shiva's been really hard on Bobby Kennedy.
Yep.
But he gave a great example why, what we should do in Israel-Palestine. And that's just pull the plug. Get out of there. Don't mess around. Let them deal with them themselves. We should be closing down all these bases. We should stop spending such a ridiculous amount on our military budget. Remember the whole Dianne Feinstein thing, where just say I. Everybody was talking about that, but nobody was talking about the fact that we are increasing the military budget annually to $823 billion. dollars with a B. We need to stop intervening. We need to pull out. And that's what we need to do. We need to let these situations, fix themselves or let them be dealt with themselves. Other countries, we shouldn't be the fixers anymore. And that's what you get when you got 800 plus bases around the globe.
Right. And, I agree with you on that. Bobby has pledged to close damn near every one of those bases around the world and get our troops the hell out of places where they don't belong. But, I don't mean to say that the Israel-Palestine issue is not important. It is. But in poll after poll, when you talk to voters, what are the issues that are top of mind for voters? The Israel-Palestine thing doesn't even register in the top 10. They're more interested in the price of gas, the price of groceries, the price of rent, the price of medical care, things like Medicare for all. That's also a big concern for voters. There's a long, long list, and somewhere down the list comes foreign policy.
Yeah.
But it's way, way down the list, and that's unfortunate.
But it is connected, right, Lori? I mean, the money was spent. We could take that money. We could take that money and bring it home. That's the point about, what I'm saying? And that's an area where, a lot of people, when we talk about foreign policy, that's $823 billion. And that's when he had that town hall, he was saying, they were like, well, where are you going to find the money for this? I'm going to close these bases. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to cut this budget down. I'm going to use that money and spend it right here at home. So.
Damn right. And I think that we all want that. I think that would go a long way towards solving the problem. And frankly, after 60 years, if Israel can't fight their own battles, then they don't deserve to exist as a country. We've armed you and funded you since the very beginning of your country. Let's time to take the training wheels off and see if you can ride this bike by yourselves.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
That's exactly what President Kennedy said about Vietnam. In 1963, when he started pulling troops out of there, he said, this war is going to have to be won by the Vietnamese people, not us. That's the foreign policy that Kennedy pursues also.
What he has
said on
too,
Israel.
one of the biggest things, the most important thing that he said that I really like and I think is awesome is the fact is that the mentality of China. I was talking to Rick about one of the differences between Kennedy and the Republican Party is I believe that the Republican Party doesn't want war. They're still neocons, and they would gladly take the money out of Kiev and spend it to poke the bear in Beijing, and that's a big thing. Kennedy says, no, what we need to do, and this is kind of really deep. We need to take on China economically, because how do we do that? Well, we got to start making things in the United States again. We got to start fixing things in the United States again. If we want to take on China economically, that says a lot about what we need to do here at home. And I think people, unfortunately, they're not seeing that the way I see it. When he says, I want to take on China economically, I get excited. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go back to the manufacturing and fixing things days for when our parents can buy a house at a factory job, right? The street sweeper used to buy a house and go away on vacation. Now the guy who sweeps the streets lives on the streets. And that's the difference between back then and now. So when he says, let's take on China economically, that says more than just like, let's challenge China. That says, let's change the way we do things here at home. And that's important.
Amen. Preach. So
do you think they can achieve that without tariffs because of the differences in wages? That's why you had companies shifting production to other countries to begin with, big companies. Trump was embracing tariffs as an economic tool. Years ago, I was always a big free trader, but I've come to this new place where it's like because other countries around the world subsidize things. They manipulate their economies through central planning. You can't compete in an open international market where other countries are cooking their economies with currency manipulation, with central planning, with government control. If you are simply a laissez-faire free market economy, because certain industries simply can't compete against the juggernaut of government subsidies and grants to particular companies and industries. So you have to combat that with either equal subsidies and programs like we see here in Canada with farmers, or you have to impose tariffs of some kind. So how do you think RFK would approach that?
You know, and use the word central planning there, Rick. I love that word, right? Like everybody's scared of central planning, you know, and you're right. Like when Donald Trump did try to have his little kind of butting heads with Xi Jinping in China, the tariffs that were slapped upon there were designed to try to bring some manufacturing back home. You know, it was specific. It was aimed and targeted to do so, but it didn't work because, you know, we have something called the North American NAFTA, right? And these things don't allow us to even be able to be competitive by having a workforce at home. I think what you have to do is you have to pick specific areas. And I think the area that we pick right now is our food, the small farmer, bringing them back, finding some subsidies and some ways for them to do things here at home. And we do that by getting away from the GMO foods. We don't allow these big corporations at home to use all these awful practices when it comes to our food. And I think the American people will buy that. I think a lot of conservatives will buy the central planning part because now, after COVID, they're all health freaks out of the blue, right? Because they understood that, hey, man, the government is never looking out for us. The FDA doesn't care about us. Big Pharma doesn't care about us. And a lot of these people were always touting, we have the best medical system on the planet over here. Well, now they're going, wait a second, no. And what they're doing to our food is awful. So I think that's an area where we can start the ball rolling and see what happens down the road. There used to be some, you know, love for the Made in America tag, but maybe we have to bring it back again, you know, and allowing these companies to just go overseas and use their workforce for pennies on the dollars is terrible. But also, the reason why those economies are so torn down is the United States does that. They make sure that these countries are destabled. So therefore, they can go in there and extract these resources for pennies on the dollars. The same people who are screwing us here in the United States, corporation-wise, they're screwing us in Latin America. They're the ones raping those resources and taking those things and stuff. So, I mean, we just got to start little by little. So there is a way to do it. You know, I believe repealing NAFTA right away, repealing Glass-Steagall right away, repealing the crime bill right away, the Patriot Act.
There's
so many things
USMCA now. It's not NAFTA anymore.
NAFTA's gone. Trump
NAFTA's gone, but it's, what is it called?
Yeah.
The
USMCA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a better deal than NAFTA, but it's still not perfect in my opinion.
Still hurts us. Still, we have to find a way. And, you know, we have to make things here again. And we have to fix things here again. Otherwise, we'll never get out of this. We have to find a way to build a workforce. It has to be done. I mean, if we don't, we're just dead in the water. We got a complete service economy over here, and that's not good for anybody. You know?
Well, we have a currency-based economy. It's all about currency manipulation. It's about perpetual debt. Now it's not about being productive. It's just about screwing around with the money supply, using the power of the world default currency against other countries, backing that up with a worldwide global military to really prop that up where it used to be oil. Now it really is. I mean, it was oil backed up by guns. Now it's going to be pretty much the guns because other countries are beginning to trade in oil with other currencies, including Russian and Chinese currencies. Yeah. So
Saudi Arabia, right? The digital yuan
coming to an end, man.
China.
Yeah.
That was the only thing holding our value for our currency was the fact that the Saudis agreed to only sell in the petrodollar, right? And the United States dollar. Now forget about it now. We're in a world of trouble and we can't print our way out of this as much as the MMT people would like you to believe. It's not going to work. So
precisely. That's why we need to do something. I'm with you, man. We need to bring the manufacturing back. We need to start actually adding real productivity, real value to the economy. Yeah. And you have to do that by producing things.
Damn right.
I think
how would you guys I'm curious, how would you guys rate Trump's performance on that as president? He said he was going to do that. How did he actually do?
I think he was doing well. I think the tariffs were working, but he only had 4 years. It took him time to get things in place. He was constantly doing battle with, legal challenges and impeachments and all the other crap. And then COVID comes along, right? So, but I think those policies were having an impact. You were seeing some manufacturing move back into the U.S. and even in Canada as a result of it from overseas. But it needed more time. I think the tariffs were, overall kind of a good approach. Not perfect by any means, but it's protectionist policy. But I don't have much of a problem with that, because free traders will say, "Oh, but it has to be a free." There is a free market in my view, in the international scope, because you have countries trading with each other, and that's all fine. That is a free market system on display right there. But each country then manipulates its own economy to one degree or another, because they have domestic economic policies where they'll subsidize, like in Canada, the dairy industry, right? And that's a good example where Canadian farmers have their production capped. They limit imports from the U.S. severely in order to protect the market here with tariffs. So there's this domestic policy there, but you could get rid of those and you'd be trading internationally between countries. Every country, through various trade deals, makes agreements. And that is basically deciding what the price of any particular transaction is going to be on the international market. But if you have China subsidizing auto part production over there by incentivizing the construction of factories with tax breaks, subsidies, outright grants, or government control, and they can build huge mega factories and then dump huge amounts of government money into it without regard for even how profitable it truly is, then you can't necessarily compete back home if you're relying strictly on private investment and laissez-faire economics and people just investing privately in something, because you can't scale it up that quickly. You need a lot more time. So the only way to protect your free market at home is to impose tariffs against the international market to insulate particular industries on the domestic front.
But isn't that a form of economic punishment? See, I'm very anti-sanctions. I think that one of the reasons why America and Canada and Europe have become so prohibitively expensive to live in. Robert Kennedy recently said that poor people can no longer afford to live in the United States, and he is exactly right. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that, at least in my view, is we're sanctioning the hell out of everybody. We need to lift the embargo with Cuba, which Kennedy has said he would do. We sanction the hell out of all of our enemies, and that's one of the things I thought that Trump got wrong, was that he imposed incredible sanctions against Russia, which set the stage.
Yeah, but sanctions and
today.
Tariffs are kind of two different things.
Right.
A tariff is an economic tool. A sanction is a weapon.
Yeah.
And if you're imposing like tariffs to protect farmers at home so that you can then have family farms, to insulate them against, factory farming in pick a country, it doesn't matter where, then, maybe that's a good thing. And yes, it is in a way still a tax domestically on people at home, but not entirely, because really what you're doing is you're then incentivizing people through price mechanisms to purchase domestically produced products, which ultimately it protects the market, because now you're going to have less consumption of imported goods and increased consumption of domestically produced goods. So it's a tool, and I think that in an international market where other countries are free to manipulate their economies in various ways, as I've already mentioned, it's the only option that is really left on the table. And the United States and Canada, because they embraced for so long these free trade ideals, And I think, honestly, it was the elites, if you want to call them that embraced that for a very selfish purpose, which was to keep the market open, to flood the market with the goods that they invested in foreign markets so they could produce them for pennies on the dollar and still have access to the domestic market through a laissez-faire free market system, and then sell those imported goods at a much lower price at the expense of domestic production and the working class at home. So it was a bastardization of what the free market is. And then, I'm sorry, but people then on the left turn around and say all this unemployment is the result of capitalism, which is true because you're dealing with capitalism in the sense that they're using just capital or money in order to leverage productive wealth without actually increasing the standard of living at home, right? So they're using the free market in a bastardized way. And there's a difference, in my view, between a free market and capitalism. Capitalism can actually be quite evil if you're just using money to make money without actually producing more, especially when you're then producing something in a foreign country, using your capital to leverage your wealth, and then selling it back into a market where you're not investing anything to create new jobs and new wealth and a higher standard of living and contributing to your country and even your local communities, so that everybody suffers, right down to the local baseball team that can't get sponsorship for their little league because all the crap is coming from China or from Venezuela or Vietnam, where people there also aren't making a livable wage. That's one of the things that Trump got right with the USMCA. Even though, one of the things was in the auto industry, for instance, that deal actually raised the wages for auto workers in Mexico. Mm-hmm. It improved the standard of living for people in Mexico, while at the same time ensuring that domestic production and workers in the United States were better protected as well. So it kind of did level the playing field and raise the standard of living for all of the workers in all three countries. So he really was kind of getting it right. NAFTA never did that. I can tell you right now, I used to work at an auto parts place just for fun, and everything produced in there, it doesn't matter if it's brake parts, you name any automotive part, spark plugs, stuff that used to be produced, a lot of it right here in my hometown, China, everything made in China. I found a pack of brake pads on the shelf. It said made in USA on it. I took them off the shelf one day and I'd go, and the dust flew off them, right? Everything else was China. It was like one box of brake shoes.
And they were probably the most expensive ones.
They were actually.
Yeah, so everybody bought the cheap Chinese ones.
Yeah, and I had to dust them off, scrape
one
off.
area, though, I'm curious, Rick, what you
gathering
think.
dust.
One area where I think that a lot of people have failed, and Bernie Sanders used to talk about it. Joe Biden signed a Fugazi bill as infrastructure, right? Like, we can really get a lot of jobs here at home if we were to rebuild America. We have no high-speed rail anywhere. China looks like a futuristic town, and we look like crap. And if we were to do that in a way where we wouldn't subsidize, the private-public partnership with, foreign companies to come in, and we would actually use good old American labor, that's a way we can throw some money into a workforce.
That can be a good thing. That's Keynesian economics. That's like a make work public project, to stimulate the economy. And that can be okay if it truly ends up being an actual investment in the country where there's payback over time, where there's value added as a result of it. And that's fine. Unfortunately, I think that, a lot of what goes on with our economies now is they turn those kinds of projects into profit centers for the mega oligarchs who just step up to the trough and start to feed.
Their friends and donors are the ones who get the contracts. And by the way, I'd like to point out that Trump crowed a lot about infrastructure. He said he was going to fix the infrastructure. Biden passed a huge infrastructure bill pledging to fix our broken infrastructure. And meanwhile, our highways, bridges, and train rail lines are collapsing every day. So where the hell did that money go? Where are those projects they
Ukraine.
promised?
Went to Ukraine. They should have
They're in
taken
the pockets of
just a
contractors.
fraction of that money, and they could have fixed every pothole in the country and fixed every bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would have been an investment, because then you can get your trucks on the road and you can get your goods to market and you can build your high-speed rail and you can upgrade the rail line so that the brakes don't fail on the trains and end up derailing in East Palestine and contaminating, part of the farmland there, and then have people freak out and think that there's a mass genocide underway. I mean, all of this crap, if they just would focus on doing good things for the country, productive things, making life better, raising the standard of living for people, engaging in growth-focused policies, then we'd be in a much, much better position. Even if it was all through central planning, if they would invest in the country and invest in the people and invest in jobs, invest in actual capital, like physical capital, like productive factories and even in infrastructure, better hydro lines, which, in many areas are falling apart. All of these things that creates long-term economic benefit and social benefit for the entire country, right down to local communities.
Lori, it looks like we found the communist on the panel over here. He's talking about central planning and the whole 9 yards. Wow. Look at that, Rick.
He's been hanging around my commie friends too much. I think they're starting to rub off on him a little bit.
Well, I'm with you guys in this regard. I don't think that there's any pure political or economic system anywhere in the world. It's all kind of a hybrid. There's a give and take all the way across. Any system that works really well has to be like that anyway, because you have people with different points of view, different needs, different perspectives, and you have to be able to compromise. You need to have that kind of flex in any system. If you don't, you end up being an authoritarian anyway, in which case, I'm not on board with that either. So it doesn't matter if you go to Russia or China or North America. It doesn't matter. If really, when it comes right down to it, if you went to any of these countries and you look at the way the systems work, they're all really very much kind of similar. It's just that the United States has that default currency, and but at the end of the day, it's like I've said so many times before. It's like, as long as my garbage is picked up on Tuesdays, then the government's doing its damn job.
Just pick up the damn garbage.
That's right. And then after that, just kind of like get the hell out of the way. Make sure that you just do your job and pick up the garbage.
Just pick up the garbage. How hard is that?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, in my town, they can't get that right, so they have to outsource it to a private company. So
exactly. I have a private company pick up my garbage too.
Yeah, and they do a fine job, by the way. So it's good that they do outsource it, but at least they had the common sense to do that. As long as it's picked up, and it is on a regular basis, I'm fine, because then there are no rats around the place. The occasional mouse, but at least we don't have rats.
We got plenty of rats in DC and in our politics, and that's why we're here on Maverick News every night, telling you about these rats and exposing them. That's our job in the independent media, because we're not cheerleaders for anyone. Even me, I'm working on the Kennedy campaign. People accuse me of being a cheerleader.
You are, until you're not.
Yeah, until I'm not.
And then they attack you.
And then they attack me when I agree with them. That's the best part. That's the punchline.
Sometimes you got to do what we tell Gonzalo Lira to do. Just
shut
up.
That's right.
You're not gonna win them over. Just it. All right.
Oh,
I've seen everything I have to see here. Gonna move right along and go elsewhere.
Still fighting. I've been off doing my own thing and working all day and doing Maverick News, and my notifications on my phone are just going crazy because all these leftists are fighting with themselves and each other, and I'm just staying the hell out of it. You children go right ahead. Leave me out of it. No thanks. But I appreciate you, Pasta, for coming on and talking with us and having a reasonable, civil discussion about the issues that really matter. That's all I'm trying to do. That's all Mr. Kennedy's trying to do. And I think that's all you're trying to do. And that's all Rick's trying to do, is we're trying to, bridge the divide, bring people together who might be political opposites, and get them to talk to each other. That's the whole reason I do Strange Bedfellows. That's the point of the show. Politics does make strange bedfellows, and dudes, we live in interesting times, don't we? I mean, when a guy like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gets more donations and more support from the right, from the Republicans, that's unprecedented in our entire history of politics. You would think that, naturally he's a Democrat, so the Republicans should be the ones attacking him. That's always the way it goes, but not this time. Not this time. All of the attacks are coming from the Democrats this time, from the left. I haven't seen a single right-wing publication or news outlet or pundit attack Robert Kennedy. So we live in an upside-down world, guys. All the rules have changed. And it's only the establishment that doesn't realize yet that the rules have changed. But the people are changing those rules. We're having our say, and we're going to have our say at the polls next year. So thank you once again for joining us. And where can people follow you? Where can they watch the show?
Well, I'm at Yo Pasta on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it nowadays, right? I have at Yo Pasta at my Instagram. The Convo Couch is my show on YouTube with Fiorella Isabel. We are also on Rockfin and on Rumble, so you can always find us there. And if you want to go to givesendgo.com/RFK Media, I am going to get out there and ask him the tough questions. I always say this: whether you like him or you love him, or you dislike him or you love him, help me out. Help me get in the room. We need some honest, journalism to get out there and ask him the tough questions, or ask him the questions that the people need to be heard, that want to hear these particular questions, not the BS questions you get from the mainstream media. So go to RFK Media. That's givesendgo.com/RFK Media. Get me in that room. If RFK has a night off and I'm out there and Dr. Cornel West is there, he's also said I have an open invitation to go to his events, and I'll do that. Vivek Ramaswamy. I plan to have a campaign for the campaign, so you can find me over there. And thank you so much, Lori and Rick, for having me on. I had a fun time tonight.
I love that you're doing that. And I love that RFK, unlike so many other presidential candidates, is more than happy to let you in the room and answer whatever questions you may have. Yeah. We need more of that instead of politicians ducking and dodging and giving us word salad and 5-minute platitudes that say absolutely nothing when you ask them a question. At least with Kennedy, when you ask him a question, he'll give you an answer. You might not like the answer. Like this week, everyone on the Israel-Palestine thing, they didn't like his answer, and they kept coming to me going, well, ask him again. And they went to Jimmy Dore yesterday, bugging him through the whole live stream going, ask him again, ask him again. Like they think they're going to get a different answer this time. And then they were disappointed again when he gave them the same answer. I mean, he'll give you a consistent answer and an honest one every time. You may not like it, but that's who he is. And I think people need to learn to accept that about Bobby Kennedy.
They should. And the fact that they wanted him to go after him right away and not have the interview and take the time. And, Jimmy had a spot where he says, well, let's get to the uncomfortable part of the interview. And he was doing that. But the whole time, everybody was like, go after him, go after him, go after him. It tells you the mindset of where people are nowadays. I think they just need to pump the brakes a little bit and relax. And, hey, if you get your own interview with RFK, you can ask him whatever you want, whenever you want. So I think Jimmy did a pretty solid job, and I commend him for it. And, there was a part where, he was asking RFK those questions. And, I think RFK has a hard time answering. He feels a certain way about Israel, but it's hard because he knows that there's going to be pushback. But he's still going to give the answer that he believes is the right answer. And whether we like it or not, at least he's honest about it. He's genuine. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and I thought the best thing Jimmy did in that interview was, that's why I love Jimmy Dore. He's an honest man. He just said, look, I'm going to be honest. I don't know enough about this issue to debate you. So why don't you debate Max Blumenthal instead? Because he's the expert. And a lot of people are giving Jimmy hell for that today, saying that you didn't push back hard enough. You didn't, why didn't you turn RFK over your knee and spank him? I think Jimmy was just being honest when he said, look, guys, I'm out of my depth. This is a very complex issue, not my issue. I don't understand it. I'm going to leave it to someone who knows this better than me, and that's Max Blumenthal.
And people should be happy about that, right? He got RFK to agree to a debate interview with Max Blumenthal. Yeah. What more do you guys want? You guys are still complaining about that?
They're never happy. Never happy, I tell you.
Never happy.
Some people are just never happy. Well, I hope you guys have a happy evening. Thanks, everybody, for watching Maverick News. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Craig. And Craig, you're awesome. I hope you will come back and join us again.
Yeah, it's been
well,
an
just
absolute
guys,
pleasure.
pay attention in the next couple days. You might see me out there in the field. Like I said, I'm gonna go do my work. I'm not saying what I'm gonna do, but just pay attention in the next couple days. I'm sure you'll hear from me guys.
Got it.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be
Thank you
watching.
very much, Craig. And I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same bat time, same bat station on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.